Hi and good day to everyone who is watching this video presentation. So my name is Nurfadhlin Syamimi binti Fadzlan, currently a master's student in Universiti Malaya taking masters in TESOL. So today I will be doing an online video presentation on my current student research project titled Exploring Teachers' Perceptions, Challenges, and Pedagogical Strategies in Implementing Literature in Action within CEFR-Aligned ESL classrooms. So in this video presentation, I will be presenting on the background of the study, the problem statement, as well as the research objectives of this study, before moving on to the literature review and the theoretical framework that anchored this study. As this is still my current ongoing research, so I can only present on these parts that I have stated. So now, let's look into the background of the study. So to give some knowledge into the Malaysian English education, first we'll look into the shift in Malaysian English education to CEFR. So CEFR has been slowly implemented starting from 2013, and it is fully implemented nationwide in Malaysia by 2021. This is because the government concerns about the current younger generations in Malaysia inadequacy in speaking English for tertiary education or for them to go into the job market. Hence why the Malaysian English education has shifted to CEFR. So, in CEFR, the new standard-based English language curriculum, whereby the Ministry of Education of Malaysia has collaborated with Cambridge English. So this new curriculum introduced the literature in action component. So this is a significant change because before the literature in action component were introduced, the English literature at school, specifically secondary school, were taught independently with other major language skills. But with the introduction of this LIA component, the English literature is fully integrated with the main language skills, thus moving away from literature being taught independently. So now, the concern is on the actual implementation of LIA among the Malaysian secondary school English teachers. So currently, in the Malaysia National Exam, we call it SPM or Sijil Pelajaran Malaysia, they currently do not evaluate on the literature component itself. So instead, they only assess grammar, vocabulary, and the main four language skills: reading, speaking, listening, and writing. Like has been mentioned before, the literature section has been removed from the main examination format SPM. So this may lead to teachers who may prioritize the teaching of the main language skills for exam preparation, as they may see students need to be equipped with these language skills more than the literature, thus raising concerns about the actual integration and the effectiveness of LIA within the Malaysian English curriculum. Moving on to the problem statement, where previously it has been said that the inclusion of LIA in Malaysian secondary school is a significant shift aimed at integrating literature with the major language skills, which aligns with global teaching practice of high-order thinking skills as well as communicative language teaching. However, despite these strong ties with theoretical foundations of high-order thinking skill or communicative language teaching, LIA successful implementation is not guaranteed. This is because The successful implementation of LIA heavily depends on the teacher's beliefs, attitudes, and perceived ability in delivering the LIA component. Thus, it is found that there is a lack of contextualized research on local context in Malaysian secondary school. There are past studies on literature in action that examine challenges in implementing the component. However, they are mainly nature, like broad in nature, or it is not focused on Malaysia, or even if it is done in Malaysia, it focuses on higher education context. Therefore, local context within the Malaysian secondary school remains underexplored, especially since the CEFR 2021 implementation. Therefore, it is unclear whether the initially identified challenges from past literature persist in the current context of Malaysian secondary school. It is important to look into the current implementation of LIA in 2025 or the upcoming 2026 because this study may contribute to the understanding of how Malaysian secondary school teachers perceive and implement LIA, and it may also inform the related stakeholders to develop instructional support in order for these English teachers to implement LIA better in their classroom. And last but not least, the findings to this study may help improve the effectiveness of LIA and literature teaching. Now, next, these are my research questions and research objectives, which we will look into what are the perceptions of Malaysian secondary school English teachers towards literature in action, specifically focusing on their effective beliefs and pedagogical knowledge within CEFR-Aligned ESL classroom. And the second one is, what challenges do Malaysian secondary school English teachers encounter when teaching literature in action within the CFR framework in ESL classrooms? So now we will be moving on to the literature review as well as the theoretical framework that anchored this study. So in the literature review, first we will see on the overview of CEFR as a global standardization as well as a CEFR in Malaysia. So to brief a bit, CEFR is a non-prescriptive framework and a flexible tool for any language teachers and developed by the Council of Europe. So this framework is a shared basis for syllabus, guidelines, designing materials, and for coming up with assessment globally. So central to this framework is the action-oriented approach because in CFR, they believe that language learners are a social agent who perform authentic tasks in real-world settings. So this shows that with CEFR, LIA means to make teaching move away from the traditional teaching to solving tasks presented to the students. And therefore, CFR in Malaysia is adopted specifically because it is aligned with the Malaysian English education goals. Therefore, the CFR serve as a roadmap. There are several studies on teachers' beliefs where it does not correspond with their classroom practice. Meaning to say, the teacher believes that CFR or LIA has a positive view, but they most lack understanding and awareness of the benefits of LIA itself, thus they don't implement LIA in their classroom teaching. So we can say that there is insufficient practice due to the effective training when the government coming up with CEFR. Next, in the literature review, we will also be looking into the overview of literature in action itself, where it focuses on experiential learning and meaning making, which in CFR it is action-oriented approach. So the students themselves will be interacting with the literature text as a stimulus for learning language. So we can say that in literature in action, the literature texts serve as an authentic context and stimulus for the students to learn language, therefore making it important for the English teachers to implement LIA in their classroom teaching. Last but not least, in the literature review, we will be looking at the implementation reality of LIA in CEFR-Aligned classroom, which we will be talking about the fidelity of implementation, where teacher factors such as teachers' beliefs, teachers' attitudes, and perceived ability in delivering LIA component in their classroom will impact the effectiveness of or the success of LIA. We will be also looking into the challenges, including institutional challenges or pedagogical challenges when the teachers ever tried implementing LIA in their classroom. Now, moving on to the last part of this video presentation, which is a theoretical framework. There is only one theory that anchored these studies, which is theory of plant behavior by Fadzlan. So this theory is a theory that predicts and explains human behavior in specific contexts. And it takes into account of three considerations, which are behavioral, normative, and control beliefs. So it is suitable with this study as we want to see the teacher's perceptions towards the implementation of LIA. In this theory, Fadzlan has said that the attitude and the subjective norm affect the intention to perform a particular behavior. And all of the three elements that is in the framework, they all have positive linear relationship with each other, which is meaning to say, for example, in the context of this study, the more favorable the attitude and the more the favorable the subjective norm of the teachers, and the greater the perceived control of the teachers in implementing LIA in their classroom, so the stronger the person's intention to perform the behavior or to teach LIA in their classroom. So that is all from me, and as I have mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is still a current ongoing research project from me, as I am still an attending master's student at University Malaya. So I can only share up to this part of the research. However, to conclude this presentation, we can see that this study mainly look into the Malaysian English secondary school teachers' perceptions, challenges, as well as their pedagogical strategies in implementing LIA within their CEFR-Aligned classroom, and how to achieve the research questions that I have presented just now is by using theory of plant behavior by Fadzlan. So that is all from me. Thank you.